Well, welcome once again to Rediscovering Your Passion and Purpose with Patty. And as you are learning, I am Patty Stuhlin, and I am the Chief Pathfinder of Pathways with Patty. Today, my guest is Camille Flores. She is an author, mother, teacher, and survivor. She started from scratch in rural Mexico, building a house, getting electricity, and figuring things out as she went on. Because she was able to step out of her own cultural expectations and started with nothing, she has been able to craft a life that she says is far from perfect, but brings her satisfaction. She has written about her adventures in Mexico and the amazing individuals she has met, and has also discovered her passion for Mexico herbalism. Camille, it is wonderful to have you here on Rediscovering Your Passion and Purpose with Patty. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Well, I am excited to hear about the fact that you are originally from the United States, correct?
Right?
And you took the major leap to leave all the comforts that you had in the United States to basically begin a brand new life in a completely different country, correct?
Correct. That's exactly what I did.
Oh my gosh. I know that there's many people that only dream about doing that, but you actually did it. And it, as you said, it has not been a perfect journey, but it is your journey. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here today to let people know how your journey has gone and your story that goes along with taking on that major challenge. I mean, that is truly something that, like I said before, most people only dream about. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your story and what led you to this great adventure?
Well, I was born in Pennsylvania, and then I studied at the university in Nebraska. And in Nebraska, I became involved in the Hispanic community there, and actually met my husband at the restaurant I was working at to improve my Spanish. So
Ah,
um, he is from Mexico, and
oh,
we ran out of options for legalization and getting everything set in the United States. So when our son was 4, we decided to make the move voluntarily to Mexico. So it's called the voluntary exile.
okay.
So there's quite a community of women who have followed their spouses to Mexico. And it is a very challenging adaptation for the family. Um, my son was young enough that he could start school here in Mexico,
Mhm.
and have that experience of socialization, um, and learn cultural cues that I didn't have as an adult.
Right.
So he is much more able to interact without causing offense than I can.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure he's teaching you in a lot of ways, right?
he does. Yes. He says, Mom, you got to say it this way. I'm like, oh, yeah.
So why don't you tell us about the challenges? I know that when we had met a couple weeks ago, you had shared some of those, which I once again, it's hard to believe. But please share with everybody those challenges of not only from a verbal standpoint of getting those verbal cues correct, but the other things that have gone along with the challenges of moving to Mexico.
Well, we didn't end up moving to an expat area. So we moved to an area near where my husband grew up and bought property here, not realizing that the infrastructure that was here was not functioning. So that meant there were no services, no utilities, no water, no sewer. It had pavement sort of to the house, no
Mhm.
electricity. Okay, uh, and it was a struggle because we didn't have a lot of money after we made our purchase, and we only purchased here because we couldn't afford something someplace else.
Mhm.
And so we ended up living here it was almost 12 years without electricity. Uh, yeah, it was very difficult. And fortunately, I had where I worked at this at a private elementary school, and the owner let me charge some things there. So like I had a little DVD player, and I could charge my phone there and things like that. And then bring them back when work was done for the day, and we could enjoy them in the evenings. But we used candles and lanterns for
Wow.
that period of time. It was difficult. It was
Mm-hmm.
quite a transition.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in some respects, you were being a frontier, like in the frontier days when, they
Exactly.
were, I mean, so I'm sure that, well, have you kept a journal along the way of this entire journey?
I have actually written books about some of the challenges that I've had in with the idea to help other women who find themselves in this situation, because it happens a lot more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And women from the United States have gotten comfortable with being able to flick on the lights, or
Mm-hmm.
open the tap and have water, things like that. And when you go back to the 1800s, it is challenging.
Yeah. So where do you go from not having any of those things now? Do you have those items now? Do you have sewer, electricity, water? Do you have that now?
Water, we were able to set up storage tanks, and then we have water delivered. So that was an easy
Mm-hmm.
fix. We also collect rainwater during the rainy season, so that helps a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Electricity, in 2018, there came to the town some solar panel people. And I immediately am like, yes, that's what we're doing.
Jump on that right away, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And it took some explaining to my husband that it does work, because this is like a new technology. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really understood here in Mexico. Everyone does it. Oh, we have to connect to the main electricity line. And I kept telling people, no, you don't. We can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got our first panel in 2018. And it was enough to use the lights and a small internet box and my laptop. So that was a start.
Wow.
And then I started explaining this to my in-laws, who also have properties here in this area. And they all have solar panels now, so that their lives are not quite as uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. So when you first got there, were you accepted by the people that live there, or were they kind of did they shun you, or did they welcome you? What was the kind of reception that you received when you originally got there?
It was kind of mixed. It's not an area where a lot of people from the United States or Canada live, but I would say the majority of the men have spent time in the United States working as seasonal workers.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the men were very excited that they could practice their English. It didn't
Oh,
help with my relationships with their wives, though.
I'm sure. I don't doubt that. Wow. So through this, you have mentioned that you have gotten into Mexican herbalism. Can you explain what that is and what you do with all of that?
Well, I discovered that I was not familiar with the plants here in this area. My mom was always outside, a gardener, and so I knew local plants from Pennsylvania. Like I could identify a violet, I knew what this was, and what plants I could use for which remedies, just basic herb lore, basic herb lore.
Mm-hmm.
But I got
Mm-hmm.
here and I didn't know any of these plants. I couldn't identify them. I didn't know if I was going to poison myself or or what. Um, and then as I was more accepted in the community, the women started saying, "Hey, this plant is called this, and we use it for this." And I'm like, "Really?" And it was
Oh,
fascinating. So they started sharing these little tricks that they did, and they'd be like, "Okay, so today I'm going to go out and gather these flowers, and we're going to use them for this." And I'm like, "Oh, let me come." So so that's where I started. And then I went a step further in looking for research that had been done on the plants by scientists to see how many of these folklore traditional remedies were actually supported by science. And I would say like 95% have actual value. Um,
wow.
and it was fascinating. So there haven't been a lot of studies done specifically on Mexican native plants because
Mhm.
most people think of herbalism, they think of chamomile and rue and rosemary, and these are all plants that came from Europe. They weren't traditional North American plants. And
Okay.
so, um, and a lot of the records were destroyed during the Spanish conquest. So that
Mm.
information got lost, just most of it. And the only way it was preserved was through a woman would tell her daughter, "Okay, this is the plant you need for this type of situation, or this will help you with this."
Mhm.
Um, so there's not a lot of information. So I have been collecting information on these different plants, on how they're used here traditionally in Mexico, and if there are scientific um, evidence that they do what has been it is used traditionally for.
Mhm. And can you give us an example of some of the plants and what the benefits are with those specific plants?
Passion flower is one. Okay. Passion flower is a native Mexican plant. Okay. It's a really weird looking plant. It's got um, little snake like tentacles that come out. Okay.
Mhm.
In the indigenous language, it's called snake plant because of that. It looks like that. It's
Mhm.
not used for snake remedies. It's because it looks like that.
Okay.
It is a sedative. It is used as a hormonal balance as well,
Oh.
and it's great. It is mild. It's not super strong. It helps relax a person. You use the
Mhm.
teas and the flowers. You dry them and make a tea, and it's
Oh.
all good.
Wow. What's been the plant or plants that have been most surprising to you on the benefits? That particular one, or is there any others that I mean you've really been impressed or amazed with?
Well, I've been fascinated with the variety. Mexico has a huge biodiversity. It really has deserts, it has tropical jungles, it has forests, it has pine forests, actually,
Mm.
where the monarch butterflies go every year, which is not too
Oh,
far from
okay.
where I live. Yeah. So
Oh.
the biodiversity here in Mexico is so interesting, so diverse that I don't think I'll ever finish studying these plants.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So are you writing a book about all of that, or is that something that you want to do?
I have 4 books on traditional uses of herbs. Um, I am working on book number 5. Uh,
Wow.
it takes quite a while for each plant investigation because I want to be sure of my information and
Sure.
positively identify the plant. I've run into the problem where a plant is called one thing in one region and called has a different name in a different region. Because they haven't been documented, it's hard to find the botanical name so I can verify if it's the same plant, a similar plant. Some plants have the same name, but they're not even related. Uh,
Hmm.
so it has been very challenging, but I like it.
Well, I would say that if you have 4 books already, you have been you've been one, a very busy person, but two, that's phenomenal research. I mean, that's a lot of time and effort. And now you're doing book number 5, and you know that you're not probably, you've probably just barely scratched the surface of everything that you'll be able to explore.
Right.
So I know one of the other things that you mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago is it's organ is I'm not going to get it correctly, something about organizing the village, or taking a leadership role. Please tell us more about what that is that you are wanting to do, or what you are doing.
Yeah, that was something that I had thought I completely failed at. I had made the effort when we didn't have utilities here to try to organize the people that lived here or that owned properties here into it's called a Asociación de Colonos, a colony association, I guess, residents association. So I was volunteered actually for this position. I said no several times, and they said, no, you'd be great. And I'm like, okay. So the group of, I guess it's closest to a board of directors, they're like the representatives of the community, made an effort to try to get the nearest town to authorize this area to have basic utilities. Okay. It ended up that we didn't get anywhere. We completely failed. Okay. There were a lot of obstacles put up in our way. The person who had been in charge prior to us committed a lot of fraud and pocketed the money. So it ended up that we got sued. The entire village got sued for non-payment of bills that this other person had set up. So we had to go to court, and we won. We proved that we didn't owe those bills, that was not something that was legally we were legally responsible for. And then we sort of left things go. Right before the pandemic, we were sort of at a standstill. And then, of course, we didn't do anything during the pandemic, so it wasn't possible to get into to see the authorities in town or anything like that. They just completely closed. So recently, I went outside one Sunday morning and found a group of people gathered there in front of my house. And I said, what are y'all doing here? And they're like, oh, we decided that we are going to have a community meeting. I'm like, really? No one told me about this.
Surprise.
Yeah. They brought up some concerns, and some of the things they brought up were not true. Okay. So it was like a meeting designed specifically to cause dissension, to cause problems. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to take up the reins again, and called the other members of the board of directors, and we discussed this, and we actually got a summons to town planning. I guess it would be the translation of it, in town hall. So we went there to see what they were. What is this? It's kind of a tricky situation because the current overlords, I guess, the elected officials are sort of involved in the cartel. And so it's been kind of like a dance we've had to do to say, hey, this is what we're looking for. Can you provide this, but without promising certain things? So it's a negotiation process. So that's what this meeting was about. And the meeting that was called here at my house was set up by them to sort of shake things up so that we had to start moving in the direction they wanted.
Got it.
So as I said to another member, I said, they don't have to force us. We're willing to play the game here, but we want some concessions. We want to be able to get services to this area. And if that means we promise to vote for them, we could do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
So
oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish that up.
So this past month, actually, I have been in town hall in the city planning commission and met the person that is slated to take over as the next mayor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He isn't elected yet, but
Mm.
he's the brother of the current mayor. And the current mayor only got her position because they shot and killed her mother 2 days before elections. So
My God.
it's
Oh,
really complicated.
yeah, I guess so. So, because that leads me into what my next question was going to be. I know that the majority, at least here where I live in California and in Southern California, where I'm so close to the Mexican border, all the time we're hearing about the cartels, the
Mhm.
drug lords, all of that sort of thing. So what has been your experience when it comes to those things?
I live in the center of Mexico, and um, I would say it's been under a turf war for the past 7 or 8 years. Not because there's anything particularly interesting in this area, but because it serves as the gateway to other areas. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I live at the border of Michoacan. I don't know if you've heard anything about Michoacan, but the citizens of Michoacan have decided to start their own posses, I guess,
Oh,
to fight the cartel. Of course, the cartel is better equipped and
yes.
often ex-military or ex-police.
Mm-hmm.
But the citizens have taken up a citizens' war in Michoacan, so that is
Wow.
really close where I live. Um, the people in charge of the area that I live in, it's a new faction. It's not the faction that's been here for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
there have been disputes in the bigger city areas that ended up in violence.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a territory war, is what it is.
Sure.
So that's where, so that we have to tread carefully here.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I mean, but even with all of that, with all of the challenges that you've had with just the basic living conditions, and then the political, we'll call them political
Right.
issues,
Mhm.
you still, I'm getting the feeling that you love living there.
I do. I do. It's crazy, I know. And it's not easy. There are
Mm-hmm.
days that it's very frustrating. Um, just common things that you wouldn't think of, like our stove is a gas stove, and we use gas to heat the water for bathing and things like that. And sometimes we run out because we have to get
Mm.
a tank, and
Mm-hmm.
so that requires cooking grill style outside, and it's just inconvenient at times taking a
Mm-hmm.
cold bath.
Mm-hmm.
So basic things like that can be frustrating, and then we have the bigger thing that there are safety issues. um, I know a lot of expats. I'm in some expat groups in addition to groups of women that have come with their spouses, but the expat groups are kind of oblivious to that. They feel like well, if you don't mess with them, they won't mess with you. But it's really not that simple. It's you could be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and something could
Mm.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
You could incidentally cause an issue by your Americanness, for example, in an
Mm-hmm.
area
Mm-hmm.
that you're not familiar with. Um, so I see that a lot as
Mm-hmm.
an issue here for people who think Mexico is like paradise, and on some levels it is. It's fascinating
Mm-hmm.
here. It's an interesting, like I said, I love the biodiversity here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there are things to consider that are below the surface, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So to learn those things, is it just a matter of listening and researching in order to keep yourself safe, or are you just it's trial and error?
Well, let's hope not. Trial and error doesn't work so well.
I wouldn't think so. So I mean, so how do you learn to keep yourself safe there? Because it's so completely it is a completely different world there.
It is. Situational awareness is something that, especially for women, it needs to be developed when you live here. You need to be aware of your surroundings at all times. And that's not something that in a lot of areas in the United States we think about as women, that I can
Mm-hmm.
go here and do this.
Right. Right.
You can't do that here. You need
Mm.
to be aware of your clothing. Are you wearing something appropriate? You need to be aware of, if you are by yourself, that you don't go in a taxi or Uber. Don't do that by
Mm.
yourself. Okay.
Okay.
There are incidents. It's just terrible. There was an incident, I'd say about a year ago. A girl went out with her friends who was just 18, and they had a fight like girls do. And so the one girl wanted to go home, and so they called her an Uber. That was the last anyone saw of her.
Oh my goodness.
So they thought they were doing something to protect her, to make sure she got home okay. She never made it
Right.
home.
Wow. So through all of this, it sounds like you have really laid a very good foundation of working with people, learning how the system all works. So my question is, when did you realize that you had a passion for helping others?
Oh, I guess originally when I was was elected, was forced into the board of directors, it was mostly for self-interest, because I would like to have all of those services to my house. It would make my life much easier. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I have managed to obtain those without going through the normal channels. I have solar electricity. I have water delivered. I have a system, a sewer system, basic. Um, and yet here I am going through round two with what can I do to help the rest of the people in this area obtain those things?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I am right now. I have no idea if it'll work this time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have no idea if I'll be able to help with them getting services, or if I need to start a different education process to show them, hey, this is what a solar panel is. This is how it works. This is what you can do. And make an eco village. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to look yet.
But though I guess what I'm trying to say, I can tell from what you have told us so far that you truly have a passion for wanting not to just help your own family, but to help other families and benefit, so they reach the same types of benefits that you have for your own family. And so that's something that obviously comes naturally to you, because most people would think, I'm taking care of me. I can't help anybody else. I just have to take care of me. And that's not something that you're doing. And so congratulations for that, because I think the world, unfortunately, is getting more where it's take care of me and you're on your own, and you are not doing that. And so kudos to you for doing that. Um, so with all of these challenges that you've had to overcome, starting a new life in a new country, anywhere along the line did you find that you lost your passion and purpose on this journey that you've been on?
I would say it's changed over time. Not that I lost it, but that I had to re-examine why I was doing the things I was doing, um, become more adaptable, find a way that this is something that I can continue doing despite the difficulties. Find find joy in simple things like finding a new plant. Oh my God, it's a new plant.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yes.
Doesn't matter. I was out there looking for mesquite wood to cook over. Hey, I found a new plant today.
That's like you said, finding the simple things, because sometimes those are the big things, is the simple things.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say it has been the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
Oh, my mom gave me several witticisms. One of them is, your butt always follows you.
Oh, I love that.
And that has crossed my mind at certain key junctures in my life, that there are a lot of people that feel like if I just get into a new relationship, if I just get a new place to live, if I just get this promotion, if I just meet this goal, if I just lose those 10 pounds, then things will be better.
Mm-hmm.
But as my mom says, your butt always follows you, no matter no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Yes.
that you cannot escape from you. So
Right.
the idea is you need to be okay with your butt, because it will be
Yes.
with you your entire life.
Wow. I've never heard that, and I will never forget that either.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's really good. So what have you noticed? I have this thing where when we're pursuing our passions and purpose and we share those with some people, they have a tendency to, what I say, yuck or wow. Have you found that you have had people, especially leaving the United States and going to a new country, starting a brand new life? Have you had those people that have yucked your wow? And if so, how have you responded to them?
Well, I would say there's two types of people that end up coming to Mexico. Those that are retired and in a good financial position, and those that are coming because they couldn't stay in the United States, or their spouse or children couldn't stay in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The experiences of those groups of people are incredibly different. The people who are retired and live in an expat conclave type situation don't believe me when I tell them these things that I have experienced. They think that I am a fear monger, maybe,
Oh.
that I am just trying to yuck their wow.
Gotcha. Yes.
And then the other group of women that are struggling, they start out by not believing me. It can't possibly be that difficult. And then they get about 2 years in, they get to the point where they are depressed. They're not sure where to go. Things are much harder. That sort of honeymoon period has worn off. And that's where I try to help them. I have a support group on Facebook for women who live in rural Mexico, because the challenges in rural Mexico are completely different than in urbanized areas.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's what I try to do. And if they don't believe me, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. So going along with that, I know that you said at the beginning that part of the main reason for you going to Mexico was because of not being able to get the proper credentials for your husband to stay in the United States. So with that, does that mean that you will continue to live the rest of your life in Mexico, or do you ever see yourself coming back to the United States?
It's something I've thought about. It certainly is easier if I were to return to the United States. I have a degree in education. I could get a job as a teacher, Spanish teacher. Yeah.
And we need lots of teachers here in the United States. There is a major shortage.
Right. Okay. I don't know that I would. I have things I feel like I need to do here. And one is to try to help the community that I live in.
Hmm.
Another is I still want to learn more about these plants. It's much harder
Sure.
to do that from a distance. I mean, there's not a
Hmm.
lot of information on the internet about the traditional uses of these plants. But here I
Hmm.
can go talk to a curandera and ask, hey, what would you recommend in this situation? And they can
Hmm.
tell me, or they would give me an array of herbs. Try this, and this.
Hmm. So at this point in your life, what would you say that you are passionate about personally and professionally?
I don't feel like I'm professionally passionate about anything anymore. Um, Making money is important because I like to eat. Uh,
Yes.
but I don't really have any professional goals, I guess. Although I write, I know that that'll never be to the point where I'm not going to be J.K. Rowling and get a
Mhm.
movie series made from my books. Okay.
Yes,
I know this.
yes.
So I wouldn't consider that professional. It's more of a sideline I like that
Hmm.
does bring me a little money, not enough to support me completely.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know about professionally. And what was the other part? Personally, what things am I
Yeah,
personally passionate about?
right. Yes.
Herbs, herbs.
Good. Excellent. Well, and when you were just talking, I don't know why this flashed into my brain, but the movie that Julia Roberts was in was Eat, Pray, Love.
Mhm.
When you just said, I don't ever see, my books being made into a movie. However, from our talk, I could easily see a movie being made of your life because of the things that you have done and you are doing in your life. I see that. I do see that as a movie. I mean, I'm serious about that. I would be more than happy to watch your movie because it's showing a woman in a very male dominated world creating a brand new life, and I'm always intrigued by things like that, and that's why I'm enjoying having you on this podcast because of the challenge that you have taken on, and you keep moving forward, and as you just said, you're not ready to leave it yet. There's still lots of things that you want to do to be able to help other people, and that's a true passion. I can tell the way that you're talking about that. So moving along with that, then what would you say is your purpose at this point in your life?
I think I've had many purposes throughout my life. For a time, my purpose was to be a mother and a teacher. Um,
Hmm.
I still have those responsibilities, but they're not as prominent now. My son is 21 now. Um,
Wow.
so in teaching, I do teaching, but not like I was doing before.
Hmm.
So I still have that. My purpose right now, I guess, is to focus on this community because I'm not spending so much time teaching. I have more time to devote to trying to figure out the ins and outs of this structure and um, organizing this setup. For instance, one of the things that the town hall was requesting of us was a complete list of owners, and I have been compiling that, and it is 85% complete.
Ooh,
Um, and they were very pleased with that. They said that would make things
good.
easier. I'm like, oh,
Mm,
yeah. So organization is one of my purposes right now, helping with the organization of the community. Another purpose is to educate, I guess, as a teacher, educate about the medicinal properties of plants that are found here in Mexico. Um,
hmm.
it's sort of an education process. I would like people to be aware that not all the plants that come from Europe that are used in traditional um, herbology are necessarily the only plants that are beneficial. And as a broader context, because of things like deforestation and pollution, like a lot of American factories come to Mexico because there are not EPA laws. There aren't things that need to protect the environment. They can dump their toxic wastes in the river. And
Oh
that, of
my.
course, affects the plant life here. And if we don't
Right.
have those plants, we lose out as humans. We lose out on their benefits. So that's kind of like the broader context of why I like to educate about herbs, I guess, plants in Mexico.
Incredible. So what would you say is your superpower?
Being pig-headed. That would be my superpower.
Now, did that start when you went to Mexico, or did you have that before?
That was something my mom always accused me of. I was a pig-headed child. And in fact, one time I was complaining, I said, well, my husband doesn't think I could do it. And she goes, well, he doesn't know you very well. The fact that he doesn't think you can do it means you're going to do it.
So don't tell you no, right?
Right. I will find a way. I will become more pig-headed and there will be a way.
That is a superpower. That is really great. So, what would you say? How is it how would you describe how you are living your best life, or as I like to say, living your best dash?
I'm going to say that there are days that it's very challenging. As I said, like basic things are very challenging. But because I don't have the expectation of it being easy, it is easier for me to be more adaptable, to find a way to look at the situation that I don't completely crumble. So for me, I think that is the goal of life, to find a way to make it enjoyable despite obstacles. It reminds me of, have you read the book, Mankind's Search for Meaning?
No, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. Well, the author was a Holocaust survivor, and he wrote about his observations that people who have purpose in life survived the Holocaust camps. Those who gave up died very soon. Notwithstanding that they were being murdered all the time, but it was part of their human spirit, and their experiences, although horrible, were somehow bearable because of that feeling of purpose. And I think that's what a lot of people are searching for in the United States, which is why they look for, oh, if I get this promotion, I'll have a sense of purpose. Oh, if I marry this man, I'll have a sense of purpose. And it's really not found externally, it's found inside. So I have been blessed in that way, to have everything stripped from me and to start from zero, and to be forced to find what it is that's important.
Because I'm sure that herbalism was never anything that was on your radar. Is that correct?
No.
And look how you beam when you talk about it. So yes, you have truly found a passion, an unexpected passion, and I think that's fantastic. Are there any final words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience?
I think that expectation is something that holds a lot of people back. They expect things to be a certain way. They expect things to be easy. They expect things to work, I guess. And once you allow yourself to not have those expectations, there is so much more to life.
You know what? Those are perfect words to be ending this podcast on, because you're absolutely right. All of us, we almost set ourselves up for failure because of the expectations that we have. And so thank you so much for those wonderful words. I know that there's going to be some people that are going to want to reach out, Camille, and talk to you more about a multitude of topics that you brought up during our conversation today. How can people connect with you?
Well, I have a blog that covers herb stuff and my daily life here in Mexico. That is survivingmexico.com. It's easy to remember.
Yeah, and that is. And just for those of you that may be new to listening to my podcast, know that Camille's link is going to be in the description for this episode, and you'll be able to click on that link and be able to get in touch with her and ask her questions, or ask her advice if maybe you're thinking about making the move to Mexico or just any other country, just to get a better understanding of what she has gone through. So make sure you look at that in the description for the link to connect with her. Anything else you want to add before we end our talk today?
Had a great time. I was a little worried about talking about some of these topics, but I did it.
Yes, you did. And you did a really remarkable job. It has been a complete joy to talk with you and hear. And you have my complete admiration and respect for what you have done. It is absolutely remarkable. And the things that you are doing for your community is outstanding, and keep up the fantastic job.
Thank you.
Well, for all of you listening out there, remember to subscribe and follow this podcast, and invite your family and friends to also subscribe to it as well. And don't forget to check out my website at www.pathwayswithpatty.org and sign up for a Zoom chat with me, so you can also get a free copy of my Pathway to a New Beginning roadmap. So until we meet again, continue to live your best dash and know that life's an adventure, and I want you to enjoy the journey, because your life matters. Thank you for joining us today, and God bless you all.